Okay, good morning, everybody. It looks like we had some information out there where prices are going back up a little bit pre-market. Let's go look at the 4-hour chart. Yeah, we can see that on the SPY. We're just going to start here. Yes, good morning, Jay Gonzalez. Yeah, we can take a look at AVGO later, but it looks like we did have some what CPI data or whatever that was. But yeah, essentially markets are just kind of reacting a little bit to it on the 4-hour chart. But the main thing I want to focus on for all the indices right now is resistance, right? Everything closed at resistance, resistance, resistance. It did exhibit a huge bullish candle right back to the 548.25 and it nailed it. And now it's selling off. Pre-market is basically halfway. So where is your support? Well, it's probably going to be back down into the 520s, right? So we are going to pay attention to this 1.272 fib now, see if that can maintain support now. And right at this moment, it's stuck in a range. And I said yesterday, I even made a post about it, that don't trust things at resistance because they can easily come back and test lower levels. And that's what I think is probably in the process. So we'll see if this actually wants to come back down to the 520s or a little bit lower. But in order to get more bullish, either way, we have to start closing weekly candles above this 548.25 for the SPY. And with QQQ, also it was rejected at this 465, the 1.272. That's a really important number because that's also the top of the cloud as well. And big rejection overnight. And now it's down here at 457. So it is recovering a little bit, but we do see that the 100-week moving average is down here at 439. So potentially it could come back down and retest lower levels first before trying to break this resistance above. So I don't know if it's ready to do it this week, but that's the level I'll be watching to get more bullish. So in the meantime, I'm still more cautious than I am anything else because price is getting closer and closer to that resistance, even pre-market right now. And the IWM, this is also a rejection at the 382, right? It did close the day above it, but it's right back at resistance. So 189.33, it's right there. So if it did want to, sure enough, back down if it wanted to, back to 178, the 236. So these are the numbers we're going to pay attention to. And all the indices are basically right in the middle of a range. Nothing exciting yet, right? We are just going back to previous resistance levels on everything right now. This is why you are seeing things sell off in the pre-market because almost everything closed at resistance yesterday. And I'll take a look at, before I do AVGO, I'm going to take a look at Bitcoin. So Bitcoin also, you guessed it, right back to resistance too, right? Everything was back at resistance, and that's including Bitcoin, 83,558. And it held that 50-week moving average perfectly down there at 76,881. So that's the good news, but we can't get any kind of excitement going until we start to close weekly candles above this 83,558. So this is something that's also stuck and can't really get any more excited until there's more weekly candle back above this 83,558. So another thing that's just stuck under resistance. And I'll do AVGO here. And AVGO, we can see that price also went to the conversion line on the weekly chart. And that's right, it's resistance. And now it's pre-market right back down to the 50-week moving average. That's at 178.81. So it has potential to try to hold that as a support, but this is a weekly candle. So technically, maybe your support is lower for the week. So it still could come back down to that 149 or even the top of the cloud right here, which is maybe around 157. So we don't know if this 50 week is gonna hold as support for the week because it could just turn into a wick and then close below, and which means your support is still lower. So I don't know if I trust any of this as support yet. So I have to look lower for support, starting at 157, maybe 149 again. So it is trying to recover, but still not yet, simply for the fact that it's stuck under resistance, just like everything else. And Tesla, let's go take a look at what Tesla's doing pre-market. So what Tesla's doing pre-market is, you guessed it, another stock at resistance yesterday, right? It closed right at resistance yesterday, and we can see that price could come back down towards the 249.23, maybe even the 50 week or 100 week moving average at the 248. It could come back down to this zone again and keep on retesting it if it wanted to. But that was always the important place to keep staying above. And it has been doing that, right? Even though it did close last week below it, it got all that extra liquidity down below with the cloud. But now it is still trying to stay above this 247 zone, 250 zone. And if it can continue to do that, then I think we're going to see an eventual break of this resistance, but not yet, right? It's just went too far, too fast yesterday with one giant 22% candle right back to the 50-week moving average. So that is your resistance for the week, 274.59. Looking for the 3 rising valley for SPY to confirm an uptrend. Yeah, I'm just looking for levels to break personally for all the indices, not just the SPY. And yesterday, as you can see by the morning analysis, everything, indices, Tesla, Bitcoin, everything hit their resistance yesterday. So nothing is clear to go higher as of yet. All right, yeah, I'll take a look at DXYZ. So DXYZ also came back up right to the 50% moving average, or 50% fib, and it kind of closed a little bit above yesterday, but it still got rejected. So 30.74 is that resistance level. It is now 29.95. So we're going to still look to this 50-week moving average to see if it can hold us support, 28.79. And if it doesn't hold, we do have this 23 fib below to kind of catch it right there. So DXYZ also hitting resistance yesterday, since it can't really definitively stay above it. And you can see that with the pre-market price action. So yeah, 30.74. We'll need to start seeing weekly candles stay above. And it did last week. It did, and it has been closing weekly candles above it for all of these weeks, right? So we can say, yeah, this has been a support because it really technically on a weekly candle close hasn't broken yet. So right now we are at a point where it still needs to stay above it. And if it can't stay above it by tomorrow, then this does have potential to keep drifting lower, because that would be the first time it closes below that 30.74, because we have not seen that yet since the breakout. No weekly candle, not even this one right here. It was green, right? Not even that one closed below it. So we have to pay attention to 30.74, because breaking that pattern could result into going down into the low 20s. So let's see. 30.74 is the goal to stay above. And mags. So mags also came back up, almost got to all this resistance here, not quite. It was a little bit shy of hitting the conversion and the 50-week there in the 46 and the 48 and the $47 zone. That being said, it's still resistance, simply because this was kind of a big breakdown zone. This fib right here, 45.61, it did close above it, but now we see it's back below it pre-market. So now we have to look to lower levels for mags. Maybe the top of the cloud can hold down here, maybe 44, or maybe it needs to go all the way back down and try to retest this 50%, 42.19. So yeah, just remember, with big giant moves up, we could get giant corrections again back to a lower support level on everything, right? And that would be perfectly normal, because big candles like this often get retraced before trying to make the real move higher. And MSTX. So MSTX, it's been holding in this 886 right here. So that 2060 is ultimately your support zone on the higher time frame. So that is the main thing to pay attention to for support. And resistance has been, for the past 3 weeks in a row, 26.93. So it's just stuck in a wide range right now for the MSTX. And we'll see if it can get back above that 786 fib. That's going to be the most important thing for MSTX to continue its journey higher. 2693. And since I'm doing MSTX, yeah, I'll just jump into MSTR as well. And MSTR is actually trying to maintain this GAN level kind of as a support right here. And it is above it pre-market. It did close above it for the past, 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row. It did close above that GAN level. And the only week it closed below was this big bearish candle right here. But every single candle after that closed above this GAN level. And that's right around 283. So that's going to be the point of interest for me to stay above. And then the biggest resistance of them all is going to be this 340 right here. So MSTR really going to start to need to see it close above that to get some really big percentage moves ahead. But until then, we are at risk of just still staying in the same range. And if it loses this GAN level again, then we can't down to the 245 again, just like we have been doing every single week, basically, for the past couple of months. So that's going to be your high time frame support right there. Ideally, stay above 283. Stay above 283 kind of implies that it can keep building that base to maybe break this resistance above. So neutral on MSTR until it can break this 340. How is XRP looking? So we'll check out XRP. And here we are. XRP got back above some important levels. So this one reclaimed some levels recently, and it went through the blue GAN level, went through the arc, went through the baseline there. So that is your support, 194.3. And even lower support would be in the 180s down here too with the arc again. But this one is trying to reclaim all support, still one of the most bullish charts in all of crypto because of how much it just stabilized, right? It just took off and it's been just going sideways essentially instead of straight down, like we've seen with a lot of other cryptos or a lot of other stocks. They just went straight down to retest lower levels. But this one has actually been stabilizing very, very nicely, which kind of bodes well for the future. So stay above 194.3. And then I think this conversion line can eventually get broken, which is currently at 2.2. Oh, thank you for keeping us sane during these turbulent times. Yes, I'm trying to just figure things out like the rest of you guys. So because things are very, very volatile. And with that, we can see that the VIX is still pretty volatile, guys. It's back above 37, but we can see that it's getting underneath the monthly or the weekly cloud here and back below this 38.53, the 618 fib. So we could be at a point where it's about to break down, but it doesn't mean that it can still continue higher throughout the day. So it is up 11% again. And that just means that things can be crazy still until this VIX cools down. I would not expect a steady rise. I would just expect a lot of volatility up and down, up and down. So it's hard to anticipate kind of big moves like that when the VIX is high, which means we got to just stay the course and watch those levels. And when everything closes at resistance, like you saw yesterday with the SPY, QQQ, everything at resistance yesterday, I mean, sometimes it could be wise to just take some profits because it's really at a high time frame resistance zone for all the indices right now. But let's see. Bitcoin dominance. Yeah, let's take a look at some Bitcoin dominance. So Bitcoin dominance is back at 63%. So we can see basically if we go to a monthly chart on this one just to see what's really going on. The last time it was that kind of high, it was basically right back in 2021 before it just melted down. And if you actually see the dominance, it's been trending lower, right? It's been trending lower highs, and it's still looking for a lower high. So it could even still go up to 70% up here before price really goes lower. So that is something interesting to pay attention to for Bitcoin dominance, right? It seems like it wants to be more bullish. because it is above the cloud, above all this. But when it gets closer and closer to these previous highs here, that should pose as a lot more resistance. So we could see more strength in it compared to the altcoins, but maybe not for long. Maybe not for long. And VRA. So Veracity, this is a couple of things, right? I have this black line drawn because that's the previous highs before it broke out, right? It was the resist zone that it's back testing. And I also have this orange angle right here that it's starting to close below, right? We can even go to the weekly chart and see that it's still below that angle for 3 weeks in a row. So it can't really break back above it, but the month is still young. So we have the opportunity to close back above it. But this market structure, it did make a lower low from December of 2022. So that could mean that it might take a lot more time to get more bullish. And we can probably see price might want to stabilize in this zone, right? Somewhere where all these candles are. So it could even go back down lower, even to the low of 0.0005 or so, just where the bodies of these candles are. That could be just the magnet for price because this is the next demand zone after making that lower low. So the market structure is not the greatest, but it is back testing previous zones before it broke out. So it does have to stabilize in that area, but it might take a lot longer now for this chart to ever get bullish, if ever again. So this is something that just broke down, lower low, and perhaps it's just going to be stuck. Okay. With that said, we'll just had a few other things this morning. I wanted to check out Palantir for you guys. And Palantir, how did this one react? Well, this one reacted pretty nicely. So it did get down to the middle range here, and then it just bounced and got directly above the arc again, and it broke through all of this kind of resistance, and it's still above it pre-market. It's only down 3%. So I'll be looking at this arc to kind of hold as support around 84, maybe this baseline around 82, 89. That's actually going to be pretty good for Palantir if it can, because if this arc does become kind of a support zone, then we can see price eventually break through this 1.414 up above once again. And once it gets above this 104.21, then I think it's going to be going towards all times. But now we are stuck in a range between maybe low 80s and this $95 conversion line. That is your support resistance zone. So we just got to be patient with this one, see if it can stabilize now, finally, on top of this arc here. And I see more crypto. I see sound. Let's do Soundhound next. So Soundhound, I still think what's happening with Soundhound is getting rejected by the 50-week moving average, right? That's what I think, even though it did get the day above it. And my thoughts on Soundhound, I think it's going back down to all of this confluence of support down here. That's at the 618, the 583, because there's the orange arc, there's the 100-week moving average, there's the top of the cloud, and that fib. There's so much confluence of support down there that I think it might be a magnet for price. Plus, it is the breakout zone before, so it's a back test of the breakout zone. So regardless of how price is up here and still above the 702, I think this 50-week moving average is looking likely to be resistance, or if not, then maybe the 786 will be resistance at 961, and then I think it could roll over then. But I'm not too bullish at the moment with Soundhound because it broke below the 786 and it even broke the week moving average, and it's even struggling to stay above it pre-market. And let's see, OMUSD. Mantra. Yeah, Mantra is pretty bullish, right? Pretty bullish. But again, the big move already happened right here. The big move already happened. And now it's stalling out, right? It's below the count, so it's kind of stuck. And the 719 is going to be some kind of resistance. So we could probably see drift sideways for a while, or maybe go back down to retest the 50-week. But the big move already happened. I would just be cautious here because it's getting kind of extended from everything. And when things get extended from the cloud, they could easily retrace before trying to go higher. So yeah, I'm cautious up here because a huge move already happened. And RSR, USD. Yeah, we'll go to Kraken or this one. Yeah, they don't have data for this one. Yeah, I guess RSR USD. There we go. Yeah, here we go. Reserve rights. So this one it actually held the 100-week moving average perfectly, and I can just do a quick fib on this one just to see where things line up. And yeah, it held that 236, right? Held it perfectly, the 00455. And now the next resistance is really going to be this 382, the 00846. So stuck in a range, but it's still trying to maintain that 100-week moving average. And if so, I think this can eventually break through. But probably right now, it looks like it's just going to stabilize maybe in this zone inside the cloud here for some time. So not too bullish yet, not too bearish. It's just neutral, trying to find direction, and it's stuck right in the middle of the range. Let's see. Yeah, OM USD is a strong chart. Yeah, it is a strong chart. I'm not saying it's not, but even with XRP, I'm a little cautious here too. But at least it's still stabilizing on top of a lot of things, just like OM as well. So OM actually had a move though. That's why I'm more cautious about OM. Right. We'll go back to OM USD just to show it had a bigger move, right? From December, it went down. It was at like 4 cents, or even down here is at 2 cents, and now it's at $6. It had a bigger move. So things that have these kind of explosive moves is huge. And we can even pull up a fib here for OM as well and see that it's really approaching the full extent, or the 1.618. It's really approaching that. So perhaps it can get to $10, but once it gets to this 1.618, I would be very, very cautious on it because a lot of cycles end at the 1.618 log scale fib, right? That's where they end. So yes, it's bullish, but does it have a lot more room to go? Maybe not. Maybe not. Where I think XRP still does. Yeah, Coinbase. I'll do a couple more here. So Coinbase, we can see that price went right back to resistance. This is the trend of the morning. Everything yesterday went right back to resistance, and now it's in the middle of a range. So it's between the 200-week 158.96. It's below the 100-week moving average 177.78. So this is right back to resistance, and a little bit cautious until we can really break free. So is it going to do it this week? Maybe not. Maybe it does need to come back down to the 1Ds to retest those lows, but maybe in the weeks to come, it can get out of this blue arc area and then back above all this resistance above. So Coinbase has a chance. It's looking like a double bottom here, right? A double bottom, still higher highs, higher lows. This is still looking fine, but I think maybe lower first before really trying to break through all of this resistance for coin. And the last one I'll do, I'm going to be running pretty early today, but I'll do AMD lastly for you guys before I run away to my Patreon. But AMD, I wanted to point out that I went right back to resistance as well. So something that was support of the blue level, right? It was support there. And we can see that it kind of went back there yesterday and got reached. So now we are at a point where I think we should just focus on the monthly chart here, because what we see right now is prices trying to stabilize on the monthly chart right around the monthly cloud. The bottom of that monthly cloud is right there around $90. So we can pay attention to that. Just stay inside the cloud, and I think this will be okay, right? It did a huge liquidity grab all the way through this 382 already. So the monthly chart is really showing that it kind of wants to try to hold this cloud as support. So that's really going to be the focus for AMD. So I think that's it for today for me, but I wanted to let everybody know that everything is at resistance, or was when it closed yesterday. So that's why we're seeing a sell-off today. So I think on most things, I would still expect more down before any kind of up because of that massive move yesterday on everything. So do not be too optimistic just yet because I think it's going to take some time to clear those high time frame resistance levels. And with the VIX so high, we do have to be cautious because it could ultimately just get really volatile, right? And when things get really volatile, they can go down to huge support levels down below. They can go up a lot too, just like we saw yesterday. So just be careful out there. And if the high time frame resistance levels cannot get broken, then I think we will retest lower levels again and again to see if they hold. So with that said, guys, I'll probably see you tomorrow.